You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating, from the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day. Each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy healings, and psychic readings. So if there's stuff going on in your life, give me a call, send me an email, and we can set up a time for a private consultation. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today with our new and improved, updated 50-page guide that you can download free off the website. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And I just want to do a shout out to the people that have donated some money to keep this show going. I mean, I really don't like being out there going, donate to the show. But if you slip us a couple of bucks, I am going to acknowledge you. So I just want to thank the people that have sent some money to the show, because we like it. We like it. Anyway, we're going to have a great show tonight. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking to Gary Wagman about his new book, Your Yin Yang Body Type. In the second hour, we're going to be talking to Chef AJ about eating healthy. Let me tell you a little bit about Gary, Dr. Gary, and bring him on the air. Deeply rooted in the classics of Oriental Medicine, the ancient Korean art of sansang medicine, Dr. Gary Wagman will explain how we each are born with a specific body type that establishes our physical and emotional strengths and weaknesses and the kinds of stress we will experience in our bodies. His webpage is harmonyclinics.com. His book, again, is Your Yin Yang Body Type. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Dr. Gary Wagman. Hey, Gary, how are you?
Hey, Rita. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed your book. I learned stuff. That's really hard these days. You read so much and you get to where it's like, yeah. Yeah.
This is true, Rita. This is true. I'm so glad that you learned something. I hope that everybody who opens the book will at least come away with something.
So tonight we're going to be talking about body types. But actually, before we get into that, why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about your background, because you really do have an interesting, how you got to this place. So maybe you could spend a couple minutes sharing.
Sure. Be happy to do it. So when I was 8 years old, up until that point, we lived a happy life, summer parties, father riding motorcycles, taking us up in his plane when we were kids. But when I was 8, I lost him. I lost him slowly to a brain cancer. And that devastated our family. Every single day, I saw him slowly drift off. I felt like I needed to do something. He underwent really, really strong chemotherapy treatments that left him incognizant a lot of the time. And so I felt I really needed to help. I really need to help him somehow, but I couldn't, at least not then. So he slowly passed away. And after that, I had this urge. My heart felt like it was beating through my chest of doing something for people, but not the way I saw it done in the hospital when my father was sick. And my mom, who I love so much, she really held the family together with a strong sense of love that even her mom instilled in her. And so I kept searching. I spent a lot of time as a yin type B who's very introverted. I'm sure we'll get into that a little further later. But I felt the need to be by myself. So I spent a lot of time in nature. And I listened to Asian music, of all music. I fell in love with songs, lots of songs by Kitaro. And I would listen to Kitaro's music a lot. Then I got into the martial arts. And then when I was age 12, I said, Mom, I really have to get out to Asia, and I have to get out there quick. And so she frantically looked to see if she can find somebody to accommodate me. And she found a distant cousin living in Japan. So needless to say, shortly after, I was on a plane flying to Japan. And as soon as I stepped off that plane, I finally felt like I was home. I felt like I needed to be there. And then from that point on, I spent years there. I went for my undergrad in Japan, studied Japanese and Japanese history. After graduating from Japan, I went over to Korea. And while I was in Korea teaching English, I hurt my back and went to an acupuncturist. But up until that time, I was extremely needlephobic. And
what does that mean?
Oh, gosh, every time I saw a needle, Rita, I would start to feel queasy. I would scream. I remember going to the doctor's offices and cursing out those poor nurses, hiding under the table, punching a doctor. Oh, I was so bad. I was such a bad kid, but I was needlephobic at the same time. So when I was on this table in this acupuncture clinic, needless to say, no pun intended, I just lost it. I was gone. And when I gained my consciousness back, I remember this elderly acupuncturist who's been doing this probably, his whole life, was frantically taking out the needles, just one after the other. Like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Here it is, this Jewish guy from here. I call myself a hairy Jewish guy who's more Asian than than anything else, but he just didn't know what was going on. So anyway, he took out the needles. I gained my conscience back, and I asked him. I said, "Wow, that was incredible. My back pain feels better. What did you do?" And he said, well, that's how acupuncture works. And I said, can I come back next week? And he goes, he started scratching his chin. He said, I know a good intern who just started working here. Maybe he'd like to work with you. So I became really good friends with the intern, and I soaked up all this information about yin and yang, which I still love to study and absorb to this day. And then as soon as I went back to the United States, I went to school, Oriental Medicine school in Santa Monica called Emperor's College. And then as a frail child, I had trouble with my digestive system. Yin type Bs, their weakest part of their body, the weakest link is their digestive system. So I would constantly get stomach aches. I wouldn't be able to eat that much. And I tried every herb under the sun. I had some really great teachers who told me, hey, Gary, try this herb, try that herb. And these teachers they were wonderful people. They would work with me, and they had so much knowledge of the herbs. But they kept looking at my symptoms and saying, well, this herb is good for this, and this herb is good for that. And that didn't work until a visiting professor came from Korea, and she shared with me a formula, a sasang medical formula, which was based on my constitution. And I looked at these herbs and I said, well, none of these are for my symptoms. How could this work? How could it be? And, well, I thought I'd try it anyway because I tried everything else under the sun. And soon afterwards, I started getting more energy. My appetite started to increase. No more indigestion. I felt wonderful. And so as soon as I graduated from Oriental Medicine School in the United States, I went back to Korea and studied another 5 years, got another degree in Sasang medicine there, and been translating books and writing since then, and sharing this wonderful stuff with my clients, who I treat based on their constitution rather than just the symptom. The symptom is just one manifestation of so many other things. So that's my background, Rita.
And that's pretty heavy. Sounds like you've been in school a long time.
I'm a nerd. What can I tell you?
I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you. So you have been talking about body types and constitutions, and maybe you can explain what that is and what that means, and kind of open the door to where we're going to be heading tonight.
Sure. So the Constitution is a pattern of energy that we all are born with. Now, this pattern of energy, part of it is affected by when we're in the womb, but also even beyond, prenatally, beyond the womb, that we take this energy with us. We can call it karma, if you will. It's energy that we have taken with us into this life based on choices that we've made, based on energies that we chose to take with us. And these energies are, these patterns are based on which organs in our body are developed stronger and which organs are underdeveloped, developed weaker. So we have different patterns based on, in Sasang medicine, what we refer to as 4 major energy groups, or 4 major organ groups. So we have the lung group, which governs the upper body, so anywhere from the thoracic cavity upwards. We have the spleen group, which covers the spleen, pancreas, epigastric, or solar plexus area. And then we have the liver group, which covers the liver, the small intestine, and everything else in that general area. And then the hepatic duct, the gallbladder, and all that stuff. And then we have the kidney group, which is down deeper, the deepest level, which also governs and controls the urinary bladder, the large intestine. And so we each will be born with a different system based on the choices we make. And the choices we make control how each one of these organs function. So the lung system, for example, correlates with sorrow. So those of us who are born with a stronger lung tend to do everything based on the emotion of sorrow. So if sorrow is in balance, maybe it'll be used to express compassion. If sorrow is out of balance, it will lead to depression. And this body type also, if sorrow really gets out of hand, if they have this abundance, this extreme sorrow, then it turns into anger. And that's extreme anger. And so the spleen system correlates with anger. And so the body type that's born with the strongest lung, they're referred to in my book as the yang type B. In Korean, it's the Daejeon body type. The body type born with the stronger spleen is the So-yang, which is the yang type A. In my book, we talked about the yang type A. These guys, everything is based on anger. Anger could be productive. Anger could lead to action, taking action for the rights of others or the rights of oneself, speaking out. And so, but this anger can get out of control, and it also correlates with sorrow. So if it gets out of control, it turns into extreme sorrow. So the yang type A and the yang type B, their emotions can flip back and forth. Now, if we get to the strong liver, we're in the yin types, because yang correlates with the upper body and the yin correlates with the lower body. So those of us who are born with a strong liver system, they tend to radiate towards joy. Now, this is also a very interesting concept because joy, if we choose to be joyful, most of us would say that that's a wonderful thing, but sometimes we can crave joy. And the yin type A, who's born with a strong liver, because they radiate towards joy all the time, they tend to crave it. And when they crave it, things can go wrong. If they don't feel joyful, for example, they're working really hard at a job that they don't like and it's not allowing them to feel joy, then they will crave it and sometimes go to extremes to sort of get it, like to choose drinking, for example, or to just say, to heck with everything, I'm just going to give up. That's it. I don't want to have to deal with struggle anymore. And then the last body type is the yin type B, and they're born with a stronger kidney. And the kidney is comfort, calmness, complacency. They're the most yin of all the body types. So they look very calm. That's a very yin aspect, whereas yang is very active. And so the yin type B will always radiate towards calmness. But if they try so hard to feel calm, that can cause other issues, like fear and anxiety, because they can't reach their calmness. They can't reach their mother nature. And so these are all natures or characteristics that we all have, and we are born into this life with these characteristics. And they control our every move and our every physiological and emotional function. The kidneys, for example, also are like the body's air conditioner. They have so much cold in them. So the yin type B is cold all the time, whereas the spleen is the body's heater. So those of us who are born with a stronger spleen tend to be radiate towards heat, or even if they don't feel hot in the summertime, they have a tendency to get sick versus in the wintertime. So these are all aspects that control our physiological functions, but they start from the choices that we made either in a previous lifetime or before birth, and we take with us, and they control our every move. But we can keep them in control the more we balance these emotions, the emotions of sorrow, anger, joy, and complacency.
Can these traits be, and I hate to say passed down through a family, but can there be like a family programming where, maybe my mom was always in sorrow, and so I pick up that characteristic even though it is not my soul energy?
Absolutely, Rita. Absolutely. We are affected by others around us. We're affected by our environment, and we take on energies from our environments. So a lot of the time, we will take on the energy from our mom or from anybody around us when we're in the womb, and that can change our body type. That can form our body type. Also, if we talk karmically, even prenatally, if we are influenced by, or if we are born into a certain family, there's probably a good reason for us to be in that family, because we can grow from the energy of our parents, from our sisters and brothers. And so, yes, there is definitely significance, influence of our family members. But Rita, for me, for example, both my mom and dad are yin type A's. I'm a yin type B. And then I looked at my family tree and saw, wow, my grandpa was definitely, based on the way he looks, the way he's, his characteristics, was a yin type B. So it may have skipped a generation too. So there's likely a connection here between influence and genetics and everything else you can possibly imagine, which comes when it comes down to environmental influence.
Well, and I just want to follow this trail because I think it's kind of interesting. Have you found in your work, individuals that this is the case, where they're reflecting something that's really not their energy, and once they have the realization that they're not carrying around their sorrow or they're not carrying around their own fear, that they're able to relieve their health symptoms or come back into balance in a different way, or et cetera, et cetera?
Yes. I had a client the other day come in and say, oh, Doc, I have so much anger. I'm angry all the time. And this anger, I can't be around people. They just anger me, and I don't want to show them my anger. Well, she comes in with this radiant smile and this sparkle in her eye that makes me feel like she's quite a joyous person. And so the yin type A, for example, will radiate towards joy all the time. And when they can't reach their joy, these other emotions pop up. And then we think, for example, gosh, I must be angry. I must be this. Or other people will say, you look angry, or, you must be so angry. This might not be the underlying emotion. So what we talked about, this client and I, is what is stopping you from joy? Because there were so many other hints that she was a yin type A, for example, physiologically, her body shape, her habits that she has. She's really good with her hands, which is a very yin type A. She's very group-oriented, which is extremely yin type A. It's called Daejeon. It's a property that the yin type A's are born with, very, very cool characteristic, sometimes get them in trouble. But anyway, for the most part, it's pretty cool being able to associate well in groups. But so we talked about what's stopping you from your joy, what's stopping you from bringing out your true nature. And then she talked about that, and we found out that it wasn't an angry nature that she has. It was anger that she was displaying. And there's countless numbers of examples of that, where we carry with us emotions of the moment. But the more we know our body type, the more we know what underlies all that. It's called the che aspect, or the internal, non-manifest, latent aspect of who we are. That's what satsang medicine helps us bring out.
Excellent. And I know I'm asking a lot, but I'm hoping you have done this in the past on interviews or whatever, or, in giving a presentation. We're talking about these different body types, and I know we're going to give examples for the different ones. So do you have like a generalization for the listeners to hear, so that they maybe can, maybe it won't be 100%, but that they can get a better idea of, oh, I must be one of those kind of body types? Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. The yin type B, which is the most yin of the body types, they're very shy, very kind of introverted. They have to really work to bring out their social skills. The shyness comes from the power of the kidneys, because kidneys are very inward directed. They're the lowest of what we say the yin organs, so they're really low. The yin type Bs also tend to have trouble trying new foods. When it comes to seafood, lots of them can't stand the smell. Not everybody. It really depends on how healthy a yin type B you are. And the yin type Bs tend to get cold all the time, not just hands and feet, but the whole body. They can sit in a bathtub for hours. As a matter of fact, have you ever seen, Rita, those mountain monkeys, sanzaru in Japan? I'm a yin type B, and I see these monkeys. They basically, all they do is hang out in a warm spring in the mountains of Japan with snow all around them.
Oh, I've seen pictures. I've definitely seen pictures.
Gosh.
But they're like hot springs, right?
The hot springs, yeah, hot springs, right.
I mean, it's not just the water, it's the hot springs.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the cold all around you, and you look at the cold and you go, you can't get inside of me. That is a yin type B's dream, or at least it's my dream. I look at that and I go, heat, please get inside. I want you to soak in to the core of me, because most of the time it only gets, skin deep. So that's a yin type B. The yin type A's, they are a little bit more open. They're very group oriented, which can get them in trouble. Like I said, they tend to be the religious type. They tend to be the followers. Sometimes they are the leaders if they really master that Daejeon I was talking to you about, that group orientation. Their food, they love food. Food is more of a social thing for them in groups, of course. They tend to be a little bit more round, and fat tends to accumulate in their abdomen, if anywhere, first, although there are skinny yin type A's for sure. And yeah, the yin type A's, they if they do drink, they can drink any other body type under the table. I remember in my 20s, I was playing quarters with the yin type A, and I thought that he was pouring the drinks down his shirt while I wasn't looking, because by my second drink, I was gone. And he just kept going and going and going. And even though I totally gave up, he thought it was kind of fun to keep drinking. So, and I have clients, too, who tell me, hey, doc, you tell me to slow down on my drinking, my yin type A clients, but I feel fine when I drink. As a matter of fact, it helps me sleep. Well, this is because they're born with a developed liver. The issue is that over time, what happens is that liver gets congested and they won't know it. So a lot of the time when we mess with our stronger organs, we don't know it. So that's a yin type A. They can drink if they choose. But of course, there are tons of healthy yin type A's. So that doesn't necessarily be the case. But if you see somebody who's a good drinker, chances are they're a yin type A. If they don't get the hangover the next day, and they can drink you under the table. And then you have the yang type A's, which are born with the stronger spleen. They're the ones who, Jay Leno is a kind of good example of a yang type A structurally. The pointy chin, prominent cheekbones, kind of that upside down looking triangle on the face there, where it's pointy chin and prominent cheekbones. And then the yang type A's, their chest is developed, so they have females may have a larger bust size. Males in general may have developed pec muscles. Maybe if on the occasion when they gain weight, they'll have a lot of flab around their pec muscles, the chest area. They can eat just about anything. They're not really. They're the type of people which are, you either love them or you hate them. If you love them, it's because you like people who are very direct. So the yang type A's strongest sense is their eyesight. So they can see through people, and they can see things quite acutely. And so if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, my hair is disheveled, and I look like, I'm really tired, a yang type A might say, gee, Gary, you look like crap, or gosh, you've gained weight lately. So they'll tell it like it is. They're very direct, and that's because of that keen eyesight. It also has to do with the strength of their spleen, which is really good at breaking down food. So breaking down the crap, breaking down the nonsense, and getting to the nitty-gritty. The yang type A's are very good at that, but they're not so good at following through with things, which is a yin trait. Yin is more consistency. Yang is like fire. It burns very easily. And then you have the yang type B, which is born with the stronger lungs. These are if they're healthy, they're usually leading a group, not a group of people, but the masses, or I guess you could say group, but the group-oriented leaders are the ones who are more the yin type A's. These guys just keep going. They're like climbing up a ladder and pulling everybody with them. And if they succeed, they'll be very healthy. Their energy will flow from their lungs to the rest of the body. If they don't succeed, they'll get lung issues. And since their liver is the weaker organ, they will have trouble digesting meats, for example, because the liver is in charge of detoxifying, breaking down the peptide bonds in meat. And so they'll vomit right after eating meat. They will, their lower body, since yang is upper body and that's their strength, yin is lower body, they'll have very, very little leg strength. And but when they're successful, they will be leaders. They'll be mayors, governors. And even if they become a successful leader, they have to watch out because they'll keep going and going and going if they don't reflect on their behavior. So there's very few young type bees in this world, but you will definitely spot one if you see one. Pointy ears, pointy head. They kind of sometimes look like a cone head. I'm thinking of Dan Aykroyd, but that was just a costume he was wearing. But that, if you can imagine. So that's kind of your general, but there's, of course, much more to it.
Okay. And one of the things that you keep mentioning is this emotional part. I thought we were talking about the body. Why do you keep bringing up emotions mixed in with this whole thing?
That's a good question. Well, because in satsang medicine, the emotions or the decisions we make are really at the key or at the core of our health, of our physical well-being. So satsang medicine is just as much of a philosophy as it is a medicine, meaning that we have herbs that go to the heart, go to the lungs, go to the spleen. And we talk about foods and exercises. All these are what we can do to help improve our flow through our body, to help our physiological energy and functioning. But it all starts from the decisions we make, or what we would refer to in satsang medicine as our chun song. Chun song is roughly translated as heavenly endowed nature, or the nature that we receive from the universe. It gets implanted into our heart. So the Chinese character for song has the heart on the left as a radical of the character, part of the character, and on the right is birth. So you have the heart, implanted in the heart at birth is this heavenly endowed nature. So our heart is sort of like the king. Talk about the heart as the king, controlling all the different areas of the body. And that heart, we talk about in satsang medicine, needs to be polished for us to truly bring out our virtue. Satsang medicine is based in Confucian theory, which talks about virtue. So there's a saying in satsang medicine, in Confucian teachings as well, which is Songgi Shin, Yanggi Song, to reside in our heart, to take matters of the heart seriously. That's how we can truly bring out our nature. There's another saying in Confucian teachings, Sugi Shinip Gimyan, to polish that heart, and then we can bring out our myung. The myung is our life's mission, our calling. And if you break down the myung character, it's kind of interesting because it has the character for separation and coming together, uniting, all in one category. The ability to recognize when we need to unite, the ability to recognize when we need to separate. That's sifting through our true nature and then bringing out our own mission, or carrying out our own mission. So this is as much of a philosophy as it is a medicine. If we can do that by understanding our body type, and then when we carry out our mission, literally, physiologically, what we're doing is we're sending energy from our stronger to our weaker organs. And if we don't carry out that mission, we feel lost, we feel stuck, we feel like we feel sick. It's because that energy is not flowing from our stronger to weaker organ. So our stronger organs, our more developed organs, are like a bully that are picking on the weaker organs and say, hey, you guys, you fetch for yourself. Or it's like a king who is so happy in his palace and doesn't care whatsoever about what's happening in the provinces surrounding the palace. So, we've all been there. We've all felt like we wanted to be a king or a queen in the palace. But if that happens chronically, then what happens is the energy just doesn't go to the weaker parts of our body, and that's when we feel sick. So it does start from emotion. And if we work on the matters of our heart, we understand how we do that through our understanding our deep nature, our true natures, then not only do we feel happier and joyful, we can be angry and anger, but our anger could be expressed in a very positive, very virtuous way. Then we're healthy. And so, yes, it does start from the heart. And Satsang medicine, and I like to emphasize that in my book as well.
Okay. When you were talking about balancing them, are you trying to balance like the yin A and the yin B together, or are you trying to balance the yin A and the yang A, or the yin A and the yang B? And I'm going, is it up, down, left, right, diagonal? Which way are we going here? Is it a big circle?
Sometimes people will come back to me and say, Gary, I scored a tie score on all of the body types. Exactly the same. I'm a yin type AB, yang type AB. What do I do? What do I do? I mentioned to them, in that case, you are very balanced. Because we naturally, throughout life, acquire traits. If we're yin types, we tend to acquire yang traits. We're yang types, we tend to acquire yin types traits naturally. Satsang medicine is not foreign. It's something we do naturally, but it's a tool to help navigate. So if we have a map in hand and we sort of know where to go based on past memory, we've been there a time ago, or maybe once or twice. But Satsang medicine is like the compass to go with that map, so that if we remember we've been here but we have trouble getting around, we use the compass. It makes it a lot easier. So it's a tool basically. But getting back to what you said, the weakest organ of the yin type B is the spleen. And the spleen is the emotion of the spleen is anger. So the yin type Bs they have trouble getting in touch with their anger. They kind of shy away from it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And when they get angry, they have trouble knowing what to say. Because as soon as they look at somebody else, and if they're turning the wrong way, they'll be like, oh no, they're not listening to me. That's a very kidney way of approaching that kind of, oh, woe is me. So maybe it's not worth it. I'm going to go back into my little space. My frog I say it's like a frog in a well. Go back into my well and be happy there. So, and then the yin type A's, their weakest organ is the lungs. Their strongest one is the liver, which is associated with joy. We talked about joy before. So they want to be joyous all the time. And sorrow? Forget sorrow. I don't want to be sorrow. Clients come in and day out feeling sorrowful. And I mentioned a lot of the time to them, of course, in extreme cases, this might not be the case, but sorrow is a good emotion. Let it out. Let it out, express it. And behind that will be another emotion, will be the joy. Just like after that last tear, all of a sudden, or after that last day of pain, all of a sudden that joy just breaks through. So the yin type A has to get in touch with that sorrow a little further, and then you have the yang type A, which weakest organ is the kidneys, which is calmness. So the yang type A's are up, go, and they just want to accomplish, to achieve, like a fire, just swallowing everything up in its path. Well, this calmness, if you mention to a young type A who's very active, how about some meditation? They'll say, I don't know how to meditate. I just don't. It's not worth it. And then you have the young type B, whose weakest organ is the liver. And with all their sorrow, they have so much trouble getting in touch with joy. And so bringing in a little joy, have a little fun, take some time off, enjoy yourself. And so yeah, in a sense, we have to work on the emotions, but we can also do this through acupuncture. We can do it through meditation. We can do it through qigong, which is hands-on, or medical qigong, hands-on, moving the energy from one organ to the other. We do it with herbal therapy, foods. Foods is the first line of medicine, first step to go when it comes to trying something. So yeah, it can be done in many, many different ways, but ideally it's balancing out our body type. Even the yin type Bs have, because they're so introverted, have trouble with the yin type A getting in touch with groups, for example, or feeling comfortable in groups, which is another yin trait. It's just that they haven't, if they don't work at it, they don't develop it naturally. So it's scoring, getting that high score on all the body types that actually shows health and balance.
I guess I'm going to have to redo the test and maybe lie a little bit here and there so I can do better. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Well, let me tell you, Rita, something very interesting. And the one thing I got out of chemistry, I was never really good at the sciences, but one thing I got out of chemistry was that when you study the element groups, you have group 1 through 7 are active elements. They're constantly trying to achieve valence, gain another electron in their outer shell. So they achieve this sense of fulfillment, this balance and harmony. But group 8 is the last group, and that is the innate elements. They no longer can function. They no longer have any interaction with anything else. They're dead pretty much. So, but group 1 through 7 is constantly trying to get there, constantly trying to fill in their valence. And then when they finally get there, they're dead. Or they're innate elements. And that's the way, when we think about what it is to be healthy, what it is to be balanced, we're not talking complete balance. If you have, complete equal flow from one organ to the other, you don't have movement. If you look at the Tai Chi symbol, you have yin going into yang and yang going into yin. They blend into each other. They move into each other. It's a dance. Yang pushes upwards, yin downwards. They're constantly dancing, and that's what makes flow. So it's okay to have some imbalance. It's okay not to be completely balanced, but trying to achieve it along the way. There's beauty in that. Now, understanding more about ourselves, our unique qualities. It's okay for me to be introverted. It's okay for me to want to escape to the mountain after having a busy day at work. I didn't know that before I knew my body type. Kept thinking there was something wrong.
Whew. Now I feel better. What happens to us if we're not balanced? Other than you get sick, and maybe I want to add into this is, if based on these body types, are there any diseases that tend to be characteristic with a specific body type?
Yes and no. The yes part is, there are specific diseases. We have to look into the details of what is happening to figure it out, usually, which body type has which disease and why this body type is having this disease. That requires a lot of detail and a lot of study. But there are characteristics, tendencies, physiological tendencies that each body type has. And so, for example, we talked about one that's, at least to some degree, the yin type B, for example, and their weaker digestive system. So they will have a tendency towards digestive disorders, not so much the colitis or the intestinal issues. That's a yang type A tendency. Yin type A tendency. The yin type Bs have more of a tendency towards stomach issues themselves, like gastritis or malnutrition. They may get issues of extreme lack of appetite, so looking anorexic, for example. And extreme fatigue, chronic fatigue could be yin type B, can be other body types, but you see it a lot in the yin type B. The yin type A we talked about before, they tend to get digestion issues too, but it's more in the large intestine, issues like diverticulitis or diverticulosis, colitis, Crohn's disease, because they're transitory time, the time it takes for the bowel to go from the small intestine to large intestine takes a super long time. The yin type A's tend to be more absorbent than they are good at excreting, getting rid of things. And so if the yin type A has a good bowel movement or several bowel movements a day, or sweats pretty often, even if they have sweaty palms all the time, it's significant. It means their body is releasing. That's another reason why the yin type A's, if they have sweaty palms all the time, they realize that this is their body type and they're releasing heat from their liver. They'll feel comfort in that, for example. And if they want to work on that, well, we can work on releasing heat from the liver. And then so they tend to have more circulatory issues. And lung-related issues. The yin type A's tend to have more lung-related issues because they have a weaker lung. So they tend to, their colds tend to take longer to overcome. They tend to develop this sort of incessant cough that never seems to go away after they've overcome the runt of the cold. And then you have the yang type A's, for example. They're born with the weaker kidneys, so they may have difficulty with urination. They may have dysuria, difficulty eliminating. They may have the total opposite. They have urinary incontinence, so they can't control the urine. The kidney itself may become inflamed, renal inflammation. They may tend to have a tendency towards kidney stones, for example. And the kidneys are in charge of our reserve energy. So they may feel at the end of the day exhausted. So they may collapse in the evening from utter fatigue. And then you have the yang type B, the last of the four, which is born with a weaker liver. So they can develop toxicity issues. They tend to have higher toxic mercury levels in the blood, for example. And they also, being so young, they don't exhibit as much symptoms as the other body types do. So a lot of the time, even though there's a lot happening inside their body, they don't recognize it. Yang is one of those energies that just keep going without looking inwards. Looking inwards is a yin trait. So yes, they do have unique symptoms and signs for each body type does have its own unique symptoms and signs, but it gets very, very tricky because sometimes, for example, if the yang type A, which is born with a stronger spleen, and the yin type B, which is born with stronger kidneys, they catch a cold. They may exhibit initially the very same signs and symptoms: sneezing, coughing, phlegm issues, but they would be treated exactly opposite. So, for example, the yin type B needs herbs that will warm up their body because their stronger kidney is like the air conditioner of the body, it just cools it down. The yang type A has a stronger spleen, which is like the heater of the body. So they need herbs to help cool that down. And almost instantaneously, if you grab it at the core, you figure out exactly what's happening, then the herbs work much quicker. If we don't, then what happens is the symptoms will just linger on, or they can even get worse.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
Then they need to call you up and say, hey, what do I do?
Yes, they do. And I'll be like, okay, I think it's time to close. Like, no, I'm just kidding. Yes, that's right. That's what I devoted my life towards, helping people discover and understand their bodies. That's right.
And we have I have to look at the clock. We're 9:50. We have like just about 10 minutes left. This is going way, 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 way too fast. I have too many questions. Let me ask you this question now versus saving it toward the end. Do you work with people over the phone or via Skype?
Your interview was the very first one I've done through Skype, and I have to apologize. I had a little trouble setting it up. So I haven't done that before, but yes, I work through the phone, but I also need more information than what a phone can give me, like pictures. I have to look at a picture of the tongue, the front, the side of the body.
See, that's the joy of Skype, because you can do the video Skype.
Ooh.
We'll talk after the show. We'll talk
Yes,
after.
you sold me on that for sure. And so it's harder to do over the phone. I prefer to work face-to-face. Touching is a wonderful way. I check the pulses, and that gives me a lot of information. But I have done so in the past, and I've helped people quite a bit in the past working long distance.
Okay. I mean, I think you have great energy. I think you're a really smart guy, and so I would work with you. So I'm just, I wanted to make sure that, if that was something that you were open to, that the listeners would know. And if they wanted to contact you, let's just do this right now too. If they wanted to contact you, sending them to your webpage, would that be the most appropriate?
Yes. Yes. I have a webpage which has a way to contact me. It's sasangmedicine.com, SASANG, NancyGary.com. And on that is a contact page, and also lots of information about Sasang medicine as well, too.
Okay. All right. Back to my questions.
Go for it. Since you called me a nice guy, I would let you ask me as many.
everything. Let's talk food. For food and when you're supposed to eat, when you're not supposed to eat. One of the things, like the next interview I'm doing is a woman who is a vegan, and she's really big on unprocessed. But there are so many different like food plans: vegetarian, vegan, raw, high carb, no carb. You were talking about food a little bit earlier. How does food play into this? Does it also go by body type?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. Every food that we eat will have a different energy. In Sasang medicine, we categorize food into 4 different energy types. We have warm foods, hot foods, cool foods, and cold foods. The warm foods have an affinity to flow after we digest them to the upper body. The hot foods have a tendency to flow towards the mid-upper body. So the upper body would be like the lungs and the esophagus and the thoracic cavity. The mid-upper body would be like the spleen, the epigastric area, the solar plexus area, the upper rib cage, or the mid-rib cage. Then you have the cool foods, which have an affinity for the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas area. And then you have the cold foods, which have an affinity for, after we digest them, they go to the kidneys, they go to the bladder. And these foods, if they're cold energy and they are healthy foods, not just processed foods or foods that are unhealthy for us, then that cold energy will actually support the kidney and support the bladder. But every food, every ingredient in anything we eat will have its own nature. So there are body types that do need certain foods. There are body types that benefit greatly from raw foods, unprocessed foods, foods that are the closest to their natural form as possible, and body types that do need to cook the foods. The yin type B, for example, born with those strong kidneys, here we go, yin type B again. It's really easy to make myself to put myself out there as an example, because I know myself pretty well by now, going through so much growing up. Oh my goodness, yin type Bs have everything to complain about, but they are also extremely healthy underneath all that complaining, which I had trouble coming to grips with. But kidney energy when it's powerful, it's good stuff. Because it's our longevity, it's our underlying energy, it's our reserve tank. So even though on the surface the yin type Bs look kind of fraud and pruny and that type of stuff, they're actually quite strong. But getting back to the foods, so the yin type Bs, for example, they need to cook their foods. They need their foods to be warm, at least in nature. Even if it's not cooked, it can still have a warm nature. Fruits, some fruits have warm natures, like apples have warm nature. Foods that have warm nature, for example, meat would be chicken, for example, but I wouldn't suggest eating raw chicken. But lots of foods do have warm natures. And so the yin type Bs benefit from not just warm nature, hot-natured foods. So if they eat raw foods, raw fish, raw anything, they have a tendency towards indigestion. But the yang type As are born with a lot of heat. Their spleen is very strong. So they're the ones that benefit from the foods that are not processed, the foods that are raw, the foods that are closest they are to nature without doing much to them at all. So foods can have one of these four natures, whether they're cooked or whether they're not. So the yin type B might be able to get away with raw food if it does have a warm nature or a hot nature. For example, raw ginger. Ginger has a very hot nature, so they can get by with raw ginger. They can get by with other foods, peppers, bell peppers, for example. They have warm to hot natures. They can get by with those type of foods, but for the most part, their foods need to be cooked. And for the yang type A's, for the most part, their foods, they benefit from raw foods. So it is very body type specific based on these four major energies.
Excellent. And so usually when we get to this point in the show, I go, well, is there some place where people can start? But I don't want to say that we're all over the place, because we're not. I mean, we're being very specific, but people really have to understand who they are and what their nature is before they can really take action.
Right. And that is a process. So satsang medicine is not for the faint at heart. It is for those of us who want to make an effort to understand more about what we're going through in our lives, understand more about how and why we react to certain things in certain ways, and just want to dig deeper along their spiritual journey. It is a very challenging process, but equally, if not more, rewarding.
How does this compare to something like Ayurvedic? I can never say that word. Ayurvedic medicine.
Ayurvedic medicine.
That stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is very similar. The Ayurvedic medicine, they talk about the, forgive my pronunciation, so here you go. Here, I'm with you there, Dr. Rita.
Okay, we're all good.
Prakriti, I think it's called, which is constitution in Sanskrit. And they talk about the three doshas, the Vata, Pitta, and Kaphas. And they talk about how we all have one that might be predominant versus the others. So there is a lot of talk in Ayurvedic medicine. The difference is, I think, the detail or the connection we talk about between yin and yang. So, for example, when we talk doshas, we're not necessarily talking about, okay, if you have more of kapha, you're going to have less of vata. In Ayurvedic medicine, you can be a kapha vata. But in satsang medicine, we talk about yin and yang. If you have more yang, you're going to have less yin. You have more yin, you're going to have less yang. So the organs have these direct correlations with each other. The upper body and the lower body have a direct correlation with each other. So it's just based on a different idea, different concept. And But, nevertheless, Ayurvedic medicine is beautiful and has a very rich history. I hope, to get into it myself further sometime.
Well, okay. Well, I'm looking at the clock, and the music is going to be coming up in like a second. So why don't you share again your website for the listeners if they wanted to get a hold of you, and where they can get your book very quickly?
Sure. It's sasangmedicine.com, SASANG medicine.com. And my book is available on Barnes & Noble's, Amazon, and especially, if you would, to support my publisher, innertraditions.com. And other places, too. Check your local bookstore.
Yeah. Those are the best places. Gary, you're great. And thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing everything.
Oh, it's a pleasure talking with you, Rita. I hope we have more opportunities in the future.
That sounds great. So I'll talk to you later.
Take care, dear.
All right, bye. That's Dr. Gary Wagman. His book is Your Yin Yang Body Type. His website is I don't know.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN chat lounge, the game lounge, video lounge, or the mood lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Who were the gods of antiquity? They've been described as the forces of nature, levels of consciousness, and aspects of our psyche. Stories that depict their incredible weapons, their flying machines, and their amazing adventures are characterized as being the product of our ancestors' fanciful imaginations. But what if the tales of the gods are true? Did the writers, chroniclers, and scribes of our distant past actually document a realistic view of our origin? My latest book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, looks at our most ancient legends. Learn of the torrid romances, elaborate plots, violent scandals, and conspiracies that played out in antiquity. Find out the role the gods played in the life and culture we have today. If you want to find out the truth of who we are and where we come from, order your copy of Man-Made today. For more information, go to www.manmadethechronicles.com. That's www.manmadethechronicles.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
We only have a couple of seconds before we have to get back to the show, and I want to tell you how you can jumpstart your intuition today. Using my free 50-page introductory guide filled with simple, revolutionary, and proven techniques, you can ignite your intuition and tap into your inner wisdom, all from the comfort of your own home. The Institute of Applied Energetics is the leader in online home study instruction for those interested in becoming a certified medical intuitive, intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner. Now is the time to transform your life and take it to a completely new level. Discover who you are and how you work. Open the door to the world of intuition, health, and healing. You can jumpstart your intuition right away by going to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and downloading our free guide. Get the opportunity of a lifetime and live the life you deserve. Download your free Jumpstart Your Intuition guide today at www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and begin living a life filled with passion and purpose.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading their free 50-page guide. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. It's also brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer. So if there are things going on in your life, give me a call, send me an email, and we can set up a time for a private consultation by phone and even by Skype. In this hour, we're going to be speaking with Chef AJ about her book, Unprocessed, and we're going to learn about living a healthy and vital life through the foods that we eat. So let me tell you a little bit about Chef AJ and get her on the air. Chef AJ has followed a plant-based diet for over 36 years. She is a chef, culinary instructor, professional speaker, and author. With her comedy background, she has made appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, David Letterman, and more. So please welcome to the show, Chef AJ.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. How did you go from being a comedian and going on The Tonight Show to becoming a chef?
Well, mainly by going to culinary school, I suppose. There was no comedy school to go to. Well, actually, there is. But what happened to me was I had been vegan since the age of 17 for ethical reasons, and I loved animals. I actually wanted to be a veterinarian, and when I was going to the University of Pennsylvania in 1977, I instead became a vegetarian because the very first day at school, I was working for a veterinarian, and he handed me a tank of live salamanders and asked me to cut all their heads off. And I was mortified, but I didn't want to disobey, the man in the white coat. And I cut the head off one salamander, and it was the most disgusting experience of my life. He was doing protein lens regeneration experiments in the amphibian. And I just remember started vomiting, and I went to the hospital, and I said to God, I would never eat, wear, or harm any of your creatures again, which was very nice. And it was 1977. It was before the internet. It was before I knew people like Dr. Neil Barnard of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I immediately went vegan, and not having any nutritional knowledge or anyone to guide me, I became what's known as a junk food vegetarian, eating instead of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, which is what I eat now, eating my own 4 food groups of sugar, flour, oil, and chocolate, basically. So basically, I hate junk. You can be vegan and still be quite unhealthy because potato chips are vegan and French fries are vegan and, soda pop is vegan and Slurpees, which were my undoing, were vegan. So I did this for about 26 years. And the whole time I was either overweight or obese, at times weighing up to 200 pounds. And it caught up with me after 26 years of not eating fruits and vegetables. I got very sick. I was bleeding internally, and I had what they call precancerous polyps lining my colon. And these are the kind that if they don't remove them always, 100% of the time become cancer. But they couldn't remove mine during the normal procedure, the non-surgical procedure, the colonoscopy, because of my state of disarray of my entire GI system. So they said I would have to come back and have drugs. I take drugs and have surgery, which I had no interest in. And so instead, I went to a place called the Optimum Health Institute in San Diego. Now I would go to a different place that I have since learned about called True North in Santa Rosa. But when I went there and I checked in on July 6, 2003 with a Coke Slurpee in one hand and a Dr. Pepper in the other hand, because if you're caught with anything there, they kick you out and they don't refund your money. But I had the cab driver take me to 7-Eleven first. And it was the first time I had ever heard in my life from anyone, let alone doctors and nurses, that what we eat has a profound effect on not only how we look and how we feel, but what diseases we get and what diseases we can reverse. And it was right then where I had my first lesson in nutritional science, and I changed my diet. I changed my life. Instead of having drugs or surgery, I followed a health-promoting diet. Within 6 months, I had gone back and had a repeat colonoscopy, and all the polyps were gone, and the doctor said that my colon was now clear and clean and pink and vascular like a newborn baby. And he asked me what hospital I had surgery at, and I told him I didn't have surgery, that I just simply changed my diet. And he was poking and prodding because he had had photographs of every single polyp, their size and location throughout the GI tract, and he got kind of angry and he stormed out of the room and said, well, that's impossible. And there was another doctor, another GI doctor assisting him in the room, who appeared to be, by the color of her skin and the accent she had, from the country of India. And once he left the room and was out of earshot, she whispered to me, I believe you. So it was right then that I learned that really diet is really, really important. That now I've studied this, and I know that almost all diseases are foodborne illnesses caused by diet and lifestyle. Very few diseases are genetic or things we're born with. And of course, there's also accidents, but something like 7 out of 10 doctor visits are all for preventable diseases related to lifestyle, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, not getting enough sleep, or having too much stress. So they're all basically preventable. We know now that heart disease is completely preventable, as is type 2 diabetes and many of the autoimmune diseases and even certain cancers. And so that's what happened, is I was really interested in this, and not so much that I ever thought I was going to be a chef or a speaker or an author, but just because I knew that if I was going to make it sustainable, I had to eat more than, green juices and sprouts, which is basically in seed cheese what they fed us at Optimum Health. So I took a leave of absence from my job and I went to culinary school. And that's when it all started for me, was in 2003.
Wow, you just left me with all kinds of questions.
All right.
I have to share with you, I had a girlfriend. I mean, I was a teenager, and she decided she was going to be a vegetarian. I think she lived on Lorna Doons and vanilla wafers.
Yum, but not health promoting.
Well, I even knew that back then. But when you were in your vegetarian chip eating phase, did you think at that time that you were living a more healthy lifestyle?
No, I actually, I don't think I thought about it. Just like, does any smoker really think about the fact that they're, causing their own, slow and painful demise? I don't think so, because I was a food addict. And when you're a food addict, you don't think about things like that. So I knew that ethically what I was doing was right, and it still is right. I didn't have really healthy behaviors modeled for me. My mother was morbidly obese, and, even though she cooked healthy dinners, there was just too much crap in the home. And I had, become a sugar addict, probably since the age of 4. So I had that to deal with. So no, I still, let me put it this way. I know I was healthier than people that were eating meats and, fried foods and other things like in dairy, because, I had very low cholesterol. So there were some markers I had for health, like my cholesterol, my blood pressure, my triglycerides. So all those were positive, and I knew I didn't have heart disease or diabetes, but there's more to health than just, a couple of markers. And I obviously, when you're obese, you're not really as healthy as you can be, and you're so I guess I really never thought about it, because, I even smoked in my 20s. I think people that are younger don't think, maybe today there are some exceptions, but for the most part, I think we're invincible when we're younger, and we don't really think about it because we don't like to think about it. And if we think about it, guess what? We may have to change our behavior, and nobody likes to do that. I have a lot of friends that are alcoholics in various stages of recovery, and, they all want to be sober, but none of them really want to quit drinking, so it's not something I thought about, and until I got sick, and that's really what happens. Usually they're, like in most cases of people that are alcoholic, they have to hit rock bottom, and that's the same thing with food addiction. And sometimes even rock bottom isn't enough to get people to change, because we all know change is hard. Dietary change is hard. Lifestyle change is hard. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I tend to be a little bit of the devil's advocate on the show. And so if you pay attention to what the FDA says, they consider foods like Fruit Loops or Hamburger Helper or Pop-Tarts part of a balanced breakfast or a balanced meal.
Yeah, I guess
how do you fall in on this? Because you're advocating fruits and vegetables, which I love, but society is saying this stuff is okay and you should be good with it.
Yeah. Well, to me, FDA stands for Forever Duping America, because they are not really telling us the truth. If Fruit Loops and Pop-Tarts and Hamburger Helper is part of a balanced diet, it's part of the balanced diet of somebody who's imbalanced, because food is not supposed to come in a can, a box, a bottle, or a bag. We're not designed to eat processed food. Processed food is addictive. It's deleterious to our health. Throughout all of human history until the last couple hundred years, we did not eat processed food. We're meant to eat food that has come from whole foods, from plants, not manufactured in plants. Even if there was something healthy in a can, a box, a bottle, or a bag, the healthiest part would be the packaging. There'd probably be the most fiber there. I don't recommend people eat processed food at all, whether they're a vegan, vegetarian, or not, because it's not food. It's readily available. It's socially acceptable. It's easily affordable, but it's not food. There was a graduate student, I cannot think of her name, I apologize. Huffington Post ran this wonderful article, and what she did is she did an experiment. You could Google it. It's called From Mouth to Anus, where she had people swallow a camera, and she tracked. She wrote down or observed what happened from digestion starting in the mouth all the way till the camera was expelled. And what she did is she fed them two meals, similar meals, but one was processed and one was homemade. So she fed them a typical college student meal of something like Top Ramen and Gatorade. And then she made these items herself, like out of, whole wheat flour and water, and she made her own sports drink. And when the people ate the homemade version, everything occurred as normal with digestion. There was nothing remarkable. The food digested. But when they ate the processed food version, which is what most Americans eat, because most Americans eat about 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, about 62% of their calories from processed food. Some vegans eat 100% of their calories from processed food. It was as if the stomach did not even recognize these things as food. And instead of digestion occurring as normal, it just turned this funny green color, and it just sat there, and it took forever, hours and hours to break down. So, from an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors, they did eat some meat. They didn't drink milk, certainly didn't eat cheese or sugar or ice cream or yogurt, but they ate a little bit of animal products. They ate wild game, birds that were much higher in protein and much lower in fat. They ate the sick, the slow, the weak, the isolated and injured. There was no farming. There were no tools. If something dropped dead, they'd eat it, but they would eat anything, our ancestors. But one thing they didn't eat was processed food. And it's not food, and it's highly addictive. If you read the works of Dr. David Kessler, the former head of the FDA, who wrote The End of Overeating, or the investigative Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Michael Moss, who wrote Salt, Sugar, and Fat, How the Food Giants Hooked Us, they explain in both these excellent books that the processed food industry knew that their products were addictive, that they added excessive amounts of sugar, fat, and salt. By the way, sugar is addictive by itself, so is salt, so is fat. You put them together, and it's even more so addictive. And if you think about processed food, you can't really find processed food without high levels of sugar, fat, and salt. It always at least has salt, which is not only an appetite stimulant, they use it as a preservative. Sugar is put in everything from baby formula to geriatric formula. It's even put in cigarettes. Salt is even put in soda. So they're hijacking our brain chemistry. They're ruining our palates for the taste of whole natural food, and they're basically evil. And so when I first read this book in 2008, I believe, maybe 2009, I stopped eating all processed food. And it didn't matter if it was the blue and orange box from Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, or if it was a healthy, organic, gluten-free vegan version, because processed food isn't food. And until people understand that, they're always going to be fat and they're always going to be sick, or both.
Okay. You mentioned that our ancestors ate meat. If they found it or whatever, and we know they hunted bison and whatever, mammoth. Why choose not to eat meat? Now, I totally get the not processed stuff. I'm a huge, don't eat the chemicals, don't eat the process. Huge on that. But why no meat? Even if it's limited?
Well, here's the thing. I have been vegan almost 40 years now, and I can't even digest animal products anymore. I've lost the ability to do that. So why no meat? So my thing is what do I want my carbon footprint to be? What do I want to leave as my legacy? And all my actions, do they put more love into the world, or do they put more harm into the world? I guess I suppose if I was starving and I hadn't eaten in a few weeks. I mean, you can fast for 6 weeks. I work at True North Health in Santa Rosa. It's a medically supervised therapeutic water-only fasting center where people, even thin people, fast for 42 days on just water. So I suppose I could, if I was in a plane crash in the Andes and some bird fell down, would I eat it? Probably. I don't know. It's hard to know what I'd do in a hypothetical situation. But I don't want to contribute to the suffering of an animal. I don't want to contribute to the suffering of the planet. Meat produces more greenhouse effect and more carbon and more gases. I mean, that the planet is being destroyed at unprecedented rates. The rainforest is being cut down because of our insatiable desire for meat. So that's number one. Number two is extremely high in cholesterol, protein, and fat. Now, there is no minimum daily requirement for cholesterol or saturated fat. Our body produces all the cholesterol we need. And as a matter of fact, the government says if we choose to eat saturated fat, we should get no more than 14% of our calories from it. Meat is much higher in saturated fat. So, I mean, there's no reason to eat meat when there's so many other good things to eat that are cheaper, that are healthier. And the thing is nowadays, it's just not safe to eat meat. Even if you eat free-range organic, those animals are not being fed an organic diet. They're still eating GMO crops. They're not being fed their natural diet. And by the way, they still don't want to die no matter whether they're free range or not free range. The other thing is 80%, it might be 90% now of the world's antibiotics goes to livestock. And so if you eat meat or drink milk, you're taking mass doses of not only antibiotics, but hormones. So you're taking veterinary medication, and I don't want to take any medication. So that's why I don't eat meat, because it's the compassionate thing to do. And, when you look at almost every great leader throughout human history, they were all vegan, or they became vegan later. I'm not sure. We just had Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. I'm not sure if he quite yet was vegan, but I know his family became vegan. Cesar Chavez, Gandhi, George Bernard Shaw, almost every great, Albert Schweitzer, almost every great leader, spiritual or otherwise throughout history, didn't eat animals. And so that's the kind of group I want to be in. I don't want to be with the barbarians who, have this insatiable desire for flesh, human or otherwise.
Well, okay. So I have to share this with you because you'll appreciate it. In Texas, they have the state fair, and one of the things that they have every year is the fried food thing. Yeah. And I went to the state for the state fair for the first time about 5 years ago, and I'm walking through the fair, and one of my kids called me up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Hey, I'm at the state fair." I go, "I'm going to get the trifecta. I'm going to get sugar, chemicals, and fried food all in one thing."
Yum.
Because they sell fried Twinkies.
Oh, I bet they sell fried butter. They sell fried Kool-Aid. It's just.
They didn't have Twinkies. I had a fried Snickers bar.
Oh, sounds.
Oh my God! Yeah. I mean, I just had to try it just out of a curiosity place. Right. Not that I would really eat it, but can you imagine that people eat that regular?
People eat that red. They have a sandwich now where they take Krispy Kreme donuts as the bun, and then they put cheeseburger in it. People are that, what can I tell you? I mean, I guess I used to be one of those, never quite to that degree, I suppose, with the animal products, but certainly eating all the processed crap I could. That stuff's addicting, and they can't help themselves, because once you get stuck in the pleasure trap, it's really hard to crawl out of. You also asked about meat. Well, eating meat contributes to colon cancer, heart disease, all kinds of diseases. So why would I knowingly eat something that I know is, that's like saying, well, a lot of people smoke, so it must be okay. And a lot of people smoke don't get cancer. That's because they probably get heart disease first and die. But now that we know what we know, there's no reason to eat meat when there's so many other things to eat that are going to be better for your health, better for the animals, and better for the planet. It's like a win-win-win situation. So I say, let's do it, everybody.
Let's do it. I have a question, and this is more for the listeners. You say that you're a vegan, but what's the difference between being a vegan and a vegetarian?
Well, to most, and the thing is, do I say, a lot of people won't even say they're vegan, because vegan has a political connotation too that a lot of the doctors in the plant-based movement abhor. But yes, I'm vegan, but I eat a whole food plant-based diet. There's the difference. So a vegan is anybody that abstains from animal products and generally they also have an ethical component. So there's more to it than that. And I agree with them on this. Like, I don't wear any leather. I don't wear fur. I don't wear wool. I don't wear silk, anything that came from an animal. We don't use products that were tested on animals. We don't go to zoos or circuses or anything where, animals are being exploited. So but then people that are doing it just for health reasons, they might wear leather or use, beauty products that are tested on animals because they're doing it mainly for health. Vegetarians, there's different kinds of vegetarians. There's lacto-vegetarians, there's ovo-vegetarians, and there's lacto-ovo-vegetarians. So what those people do is they don't actually eat meat of animals. They don't eat the flesh of a cow, a pig, a chicken, or a fish, but they will use some of the secretions or the byproducts, which means that the ovo-vegetarian will eat eggs. The lacto-vegetarian will use dairy products, and the lacto-ovo will use eggs and dairy products. So that's the difference as far as I can tell. Now, a lot of people, I have friends that fall into this category. They're lacto-vegetarians, which means they still use cheese or dairy products, ice cream, yogurt. And what they don't understand, that if you're doing this truly for ethical reasons, actually for health reasons also, that dairy is the worst thing you can eat, both for your health and both for the health of the animals, because there's nobody that suffers a fate worse than the dairy cows, because they are forcibly raped on something called a rape rack. Their young are torn from them the minute they're born. The daughters become dairy cows, the sons become veal with a little chain around their neck, where they're fed an anemic diet in a crate so small they can't turn around. They're killed after a few days. Even Julia Child, towards the end of her life, when taken to, I believe it was either a veal farm or a foie gras place by Jean Robin, said she would never have knowingly supported this kind of cruelty. So if you're doing it for ethical reasons and you're drinking milk, it's not really ethical, because if you're drinking any milk, any dairy products, you're supporting one of the cruelest industries on earth, the veal industry. So dairy cows stand in a stall for about 4 years because they can't live much longer, because they're forced to, by giving these mass doses of hormones, they're forced to produce about 40 times more milk than they ever could in nature. And by the way, that milk was meant to feed their young, who instead is being not fed at all, to become anemic, to be killed for veal. So it's really a horrible life. And the problem is because if you drink these milk products or cheese or yogurt or ice cream or feed them to your children, what's happening is little girls are developing at very early ages, getting breast buds, getting their periods, because of these mass doses of hormones in the milk. Now, in the natural world, places where people are not consuming dairy, like Asia and Ethiopia and parts of the world that know that dairy is not food for humans, it only does a body good if you're like a calf trying to grow to 800 pounds in a year. They reach menarche, which is menstruation, at about 17 to 19. That is when you're supposed to get your period. But in our country, little girls are getting their periods now as early as 6. And I read on the internet the other day that 6 years old is
oh my
when
God.
they get their period. And I read the other day that an 8-year-old girl got pregnant. Now, the only way you can get pregnant at that age is if you get your period. And the only way you're going to get your period is if you're consuming dairy products, because you're consuming hormones in the milk, in the cheese, in the yogurt, and the ice cream. And it's horrible when little girls are getting their period at 6, 8, 10, 11, even 12 or 14, because when sexual maturity precedes emotional maturity, that's when you have problems with teenage or even now younger pregnancy. So it's a horrible thing to consume dairy products. If you read the book, The China Study by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who I believe will be speaking in Marshall, Texas in March, he was a dairy farmer who was hired by the dairy industry to find a way to get cows to produce more milk. And what he discovered was that the casein, which was the protein in dairy, was the most potent carcinogen he ever discovered. He was literally able to turn cancer on and off. And the countries that drink the most milk have the highest rate of osteoporosis and hip fractures. And countries that don't drink milk, like Asia, they don't have high incidence of these diseases, and they have almost zero of the reproductive cancers, like the breast, the uterine, the ovarian, the prostate cancer. So it's really, we've been sold a bill of goods by the dairy industry. So, if you got milk, you pretty much got cancer, or you got some other disease, because it's very addictive too, by the way. There's something that when you drink it, it turns to these brain chemicals called casomorphines. Caso meaning pertaining to the protein casein, the dairy protein, and morphine, an opiate to your brain. And the theory is that whoever created us, I believe it was God, but whatever you want to say, however we got here, put these compounds in the milk so that the infant would stay by the mother, so that we didn't always have shelter from harm, so that the baby bear would nurse and want to be by the baby mama bear, and the human baby would be by the mama and not wander off and get killed. So they put these mildly addictive compounds in the breast milk of every species. Well, nature never intended us to drink milk after maturity, number one. Human beings are the only ones that do that, and let alone drink milk of another species. So when we're having things like cheese and yogurt and ice cream, we're taking this dairy from another species, we're concentrating, and so we're getting these high level of brain chemicals. And I don't know if you're ever familiar with Howard Lyman, who was a fourth generation cattle rancher. I interviewed him on my podcast, Healthy Living with Chef AJ, and he said that quitting cheese was harder than quitting smoking. It's that addictive, and that's why people can't do it. The other thing that really made me, well, I'm really fortunate, I guess, because I'm allergic to dairy, and so I never had.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, I never had to get into that addiction. But what would make me not eating it not want to eat it even if I wasn't is, and you can go on the USDA website, this is not vegan propaganda, but the USDA goes around to these dairy farms and inspects the milk, because the government allows a certain parts per million of these other compounds in the milk that's not just the milk. And so they take a little eyedropper type thingy and take a couple of drops on a slide, and what they're looking for is pus, and they allow several parts per million of pus in the milk, because you have to understand the cow is being like milked all day. She's on these machines, and so what happens is she develops something called mastitis, because her udders crack and bleed and ooze blood, and so the blood and the pus is getting in the milk. She's not being taken for a walk, so she's urinating and defecating in the milk, and so when the milk has too much blood or pus or feces or urine, they don't throw it out. That's what they use to make the cheese and the yogurt and the ice cream. So just when I learned that, it was so unappetizing that there would be no way I could ever consider eating that, because I just don't like eating shit personally, So what can I tell you? Not my cup of tea.
Makes me very happy that I'm allergic and I don't.
You're very fortunate. And even if you weren't allergic, at least 70% of the world is lactose intolerant. If you're African American or Latino or Pacific Islander or Asian, very few people even are able to digest lactose, the sugar in milk. So, and a lot of people will take these things called lactate or drink special milk to digest a product that was never intended for us. Because as I said, humans are the only species that not only drink milk after maturity, but they drink milk of another species. You're not going to find it anywhere else in nature. So, it does not do a body good. It does a body a great deal of harm. And if I could wave a magic wand and get Americans, or not just Americans, but the whole world to stop doing one thing, it would be to stop dairy. That would be the first thing, even before meat.
Interesting.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about osteoporosis, because this has been my concern, is that I don't drink milk, and we've been, I'll say brainwashed. I'm going to use that word, brainwashed into believing that you don't drink milk, you develop osteoporosis. Well, so for women or anybody, that is moving into that age where they really need to think about calcium consumption, where can you get ample amounts of calcium if it's not coming from dairy?
Almost everything you're going to ask me, whatever the question, the answer is kale, because green leafy vegetables are extremely high in calcium. Sesame seeds and tahini is really high in calcium, and it's high in more utilizable calcium than in milk. As I mentioned earlier, if you go on the World Health Organization's website, the countries that drink the most milk have the highest rate of osteoporosis and hip fracture. Milk does not do a body good. We have been sold a bill of goods. We have been lied to about milk and its ability to give us the utilizable calcium we need. If you eat enough vegetables, and Americans eat less than 10% of their calories from vegetables and include a lot of the green leafies like the spinach and the kale or the collards, mustard green, turnip greens, have some sesame seeds or some tahini, you'll get plenty of calcium. I believe sesame seeds are something like 56% calcium. So, you can easily go on the government's national database and look at the amount of calcium in foods. And there's so many foods. I don't have them all memorized. I mean, oranges even are very high in calcium. So, I eat a lot of vegetables, and that I don't worry. I mean, I had that test, I forget what it's called, for osteopenia or whatever. I'm almost 55. I don't have it. So, and I don't take any vitamins or minerals either, other than B12. So you don't have to drink milk to get calcium. I mean, why would a product that 70% of the world can't even digest be the answer to our, osteoporosis? Milk actually causes it, because you end up leaching calcium from your bones and peeing it out. Dr. McDougall has a great free video on YouTube on his website called The Perils levels of dairy that scientifically explains this whole process. I'm not a medical doctor. I just remember, parts of all these different doctors' talks, but I know enough to know that is not a utilizable source of calcium, and you can get it from whole foods. And if you're eating enough fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, you'll be fine.
Well, okay. But see, that makes me feel a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Because, I stopped drinking milk in my first year in college. And that was only because they had chocolate milk and it tasted really good.
Yeah.
And it was really thick and whole milk.
Yep.
Anyway. But that's when I figured out I couldn't drink it anymore.
There's a great I wish I could think of her name right now. I can see her face in my head, but she wrote Amy Lenu. Ph.D., L.A.N.O.U. I cannot think of the name of her wonderful book, but if you Google it, she has a book devoted to exactly that subject, and with plenty of recipes so that you can get deliciously as much calcium as you need. Something about bone health, but it's a great book by Amy Lenu that will put all your fears to rest about calcium.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we're talking about the food. We talked about like antibiotics in meat and dairy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, devil's advocate. You're advocating a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the whole thing with GMOs?
Well, here's the thing. Last time I checked, now I'm not saying GMOs are good. I'm playing devil's advocate here for a minute. Okay. I'm not saying they're good. I do not think they're good. And even if they are good, it's too soon to tell whether they're going to be considered safe or not. But you have to understand that heart disease is the number one killer of Americans. 2/3 of Americans are overweight and obese, and it's not because they ate GMO. And it's not because they ate conventional kale over organic kale. Americans are fat or sick because they're eating a diet made up of animal products and processed food. And while we had a proposition in California, 37, I completely voted against GMOs. It mainly, not even so much that I was against GMOs, which I am, but at least to give us the right to know, to have it on the label. Other countries do not allow them. That is not what's causing the health epidemic, the heart disease epidemic, and the obesity epidemic. Not to say they're good, but I will tell you that I would eat a GMO piece of fruit or vegetable, non-organic, any day before I would eat an organic piece of vegan junk food or animal products, because those are much more deleterious to your health. But like I say, I can't promise 100% of the time if I'm avoiding GMOs because I travel full time, but I do know that I'm very lucky to be allergic to soy and wheat, and I don't eat a lot of corn, and those are the three most heavily genetically modified crops anyway. So I just make sure that when I do eat corn, it's organic, because then it ostensibly is not going to be GMO. But again, the other two, soy and wheat, since I'm allergic to, I don't have to deal with. So, I say avoid them, just like I say it's better to buy organic. But, and do we even believe, like that this alleged meat that's free range and organic, do we know 100% that the cow didn't eat GMO crops? I don't know. I don't believe it. We don't. So, you're not just what you eat, you are what the animal ate as well. And so, yeah, I'm not for GMOs, but that is not what's causing the problem. That is not what's causing the problem in this country, and not eating organic is not what's causing the problem. The problem is we eat too much, and specifically we eat too much meat, we eat too much cheese, and we eat too much sugar, oil, and salt. That's the problem. And we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables or get enough exercise.
Well, and it's also sounding like when you are making food choices, it's really about making healthier choices and getting the processed stuff out of there, and not worrying so much about the GMOs, but more the sugar, fat, salts, dairy, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what I say. I'm against processed food, even if it's organic and non-GMO and gluten-free. To me, we're not supposed to eat food in cans, boxes, bottles, or bags. I make a few exceptions. I'll eat canned salt-free beans. I've got a mustard I buy in a container that has no salt, and you can get some plant milks that have none of the crap in it. But Jack LaLanne, who's one of my heroes, who died about, I think, 5 years ago now, he used to say these 13 words that always are in my head, which is, if God made it, eat it. If man made it, don't eat it. It's as simple as that. And, God didn't make GMOs. He didn't make processed food, that's for sure. And you could say he ate animals, but they're not in their natural state anymore anyway. They're not the way that he intended them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were talking about the weight epidemic in the United States.
It's getting bad.
It's just amazing.
What's even sadder is it's with children. I mean, it's, if a grown up wants to kill themselves with food, it's, I suppose, their choice. But when I go to Costco, which I do, I go to Costco every week because Costco has amazing prices on organic greens and vegetables and fruit, both fresh and frozen. And they also have a snack bar where for $1.50 you can get a refillable soft drink and a piece of pizza. And I see these morbidly obese parents, usually mothers because of the time of day I go, and they have their little shopping cart with their kid in there. And, the kid is so fat he can't really get his legs in the shopping cart. The kid, it looks, I call them cubes now because they're as wide as they are tall. And she goes and gets the pizza and the soda. And then she takes the soda and she pours it in a sippy cup and hands it to her kid, who's not even 2. And then she fills up a soda for herself. And, if she was doing that with cocaine or heroin, the kid would be taken away. And it's just very sad now that 1 out of every 3 children under the age of 18 are already obese. And when you're obese at that young of an age, you set yourself up for all these lifestyle diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes much sooner. When I was little, my grandmother got diabetes at about age 66, which is normal considering the way she ate. But back then it was called your grandma's diabetes, or because it was adult diabetes because only adults got it, as opposed to juvenile diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease which people are often born with. Well, now because kids as young as 6 years old are getting this grown-up disease, they couldn't call it adult diabetes, so they had to rename the disease, and now it's called type 2 diabetes. And it's very, very sad. It's a horrible disease because your options generally are blindness, limb amputation, or death. And that's basically the course of the disease. But with a whole food plant-based diet, you can not only prevent this disease, but you can actually reverse it to a certain degree depending on how soon you get serious about it. Oh, the other choice is dialysis. That's one of the other choices. So it's blindness, dialysis, limb amputation, or death. And by the time you're blind and on dialysis, and have had a stroke because of your diabetes, you probably wish you were dead. It's a horrible disease. It need not exist. We're talking about type 2 here, and it's a completely foodborne illness. And Americans,
but you could take a pill for it. Come on.
Nope, you can't, because you're talking about what the pills do for heart disease and for diabetes is they don't go to the cause. They slow the progression of the disease, so you can still die. You just die slower. You still die painfully, but you die slower. So there really is no pill to reverse diabetes or reverse heart disease. All the pills and the potions and the injections do is slow the progression of the disease. They manage symptoms. And so it's like Dr. Campbell says in his book, treating the diseases in this country the way we're treating them by not addressing the root cause is like mopping the floor without turning the water off. You're never going to get a cure with these kind of remedies because they don't treat the cause. They just treat the symptoms. They're Band-Aids.
Speaking to the choir.
Yeah.
If you were going to give someone advice to start losing weight, what would you suggest?
Well, the first thing you do is you want to get rid of oil, because all oil, whether it's coconut oil or the revered olive oil is all 4,000 calories a pound. It's the most calorie-dense, nutrient-poor food on the planet. We don't need it. It contributes to heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. They call it atherogenic, diabetogenic, and obesogenic. It's a highly processed food. It is not found anywhere in nature. There are no oil ponds or oil trees. There is fat in nature. There's nuts and seeds and avocados and coconut and olives, but there is no oil in nature. Just like with dairy, we've been sold a bill of goods by the olive oil industry, by the oil industry, that not only is this a healthful product, but that we need it. We do not need oil. We need fat. There's fat in everything. There's even fat in fruit. There's fat in greens. Oatmeal is 17% fat. So we don't need to be pouring this 4,000 calorie a pound food that has absolutely no fiber and nutrients all over our food. If you ask most people what the definition of a junk food is, they would say a food that has absolutely no nutrients. And everybody agrees that sugar is a junk food. And it is, but it's only 1,800 calories a pound. Oil is 4,000 calories a pound, 120 calories per tablespoon. And most people eat way more than a tablespoon. So I'll work with people here in my Ultimate Weight Loss program, and some of them are models and actresses. And they're not obese or anything, but they need to be thinner than most people to work. So they need to like lose 10 pounds. And I tell them, if you just stop eating oil and you stop eating cheese, which is 72% saturated fat, 72%, they will lose weight. A lot of people have bought into this, well, this coconut oil, it's going to reverse Alzheimer's and all this stuff. Well, coconut oil is still 120 calories per tablespoon. It's all fat. It's 4,000 calories a pound, but it's actually worse than olive oil because the saturated fat, as opposed to being 14%, is 92%. So coconut oil has even more saturated fat than lard. So if you want to lose weight and don't necessarily want to be vegan, give up oil, give up cheese, and all dairy products, because they're all 1,600 calories a pound anyway. So those would be the two things I would say first for people that wanted to lose weight. Eat fruits and vegetables, add as many of those as you can, because they're the food's lowest in caloric density. Vegetables are 100 calories a pound raw, 200 calories a pound cooked. You can have 20 pounds of almost any vegetable for the same amount of calories in 1 pound of olive oil. So in other words, for 1 tablespoon of olive oil, I can eat a whole pound of roasted Brussels sprouts. What's going to fill me up more? What has more fiber and nutrients? For 1 tablespoon of olive oil, it comes from 44 olives. For 1 tablespoon of corn oil, it came from 16 ears of corn. Well, nobody that I know really sits down and eats 44 olives or eats 16 ears of corn, because what happens is when you process a food, whether it's corn into corn oil or beets into sugar, is you take everything that was good about the whole natural food found in nature, which is the water and the fiber, the vitamins and the minerals, the phytochemicals and the antioxidants and the micronutrients, and you throw them away in the sludge, and you're eating or drinking the non-nutritive portion of the food, which again has no fiber, no water, no nutrients. And that is the quintessential definition of a junk food. So if you get rid of the oil and don't use those sprays, because that's not true. How can it have 0 calories for 1/32nd of a second spray? Nobody can spray for 1/32nd of a second. It's impossible. So again, the processed food industry lies on their labeling. Don't believe anything in the label. The best thing you could do is eat foods without label. If you need a label, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Well, it's like, the serving size for potato chips is really like 2 potato chips.
Yeah.
And they're like, or you get a little thing and it says, and you think, oh, well, this is a single serving, and it's like 3 servings per package. And it's like,
oh yeah,
what?
Like a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream is 4 servings. Not for me. That's like half a serving. I mean, so yeah, it's ridiculous what they can do to, and they'll lie about this. Not they'll lie, but they'll finagle the serving size so that if it really does have sugar or fat, they can make it appear as if it doesn't. So yeah, you never want to believe anything on the label, and you don't want to eat foods with labels. Or if you do eat foods with labels, they should say what's in it. So if you get a can of beans, it should say beans or beans and water. That's the kind of labels you want. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of processed food, as you can imagine. I'm surprised they haven't come try to get me yet.
I think the place where a lot of people get really stuck is when you're talking about carbs. Are carbs good? Are carbs bad? If we can have carbs, which are the good ones? Which are the bad ones?
Well, the good ones are the complex ones that are found in nature, the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. The bad ones are the ones not found in nature, the flours and the sugars. So if it's found in nature, it's good. Our ancestors ate about 80% of their calories from complex carbohydrates, as should we. The longest lived people on the planet are the Okinawans in Japan. They eat 72% of their calories from carbs. They're called sweet potatoes. So if they're complex and they're intact, they're excellent. If they're processed, they're refined, they're not good for us. So I don't believe in eating pasta and flour and bread, all that stuff, because it's too highly processed. And that's and sugar, of course, So those are the carbs to avoid. But all carbs got a bad rap when it really should be processed and refined carbs, just like processed and refined oils. So fat's not a bad thing. If you're not really overweight, you can have some nuts and seeds and avocado. Those are healthy, but it's when you refine it. So the problem is always occurs when you process the food, when you refine the food, when you take a whole natural food and make a fractionated food-like substance. So that's where carbs got a bad rap, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet with oil. But if you eat whole food, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, these are carbs, and we need to have about 80% of our calories from carbs. That's what our brain needs to function. People that don't eat carbs, yes, they'll lose weight initially because they're losing water. But first of all, they always go off their diet. That's why they have to have these cheat days built in, because you can't sustain it, because you end up having really foul smelling breath, end up being constipated, and eating that many animal products, you increase your risk for stroke and heart disease and all those kind of things. So again, look at what our ancestors ate. They ate complex carbs. They didn't eat processed food, but they did eat complex carbohydrates. They ate fruits and vegetables, whole grains and legumes.
So it sounds like you're saying rice,
Absolutely.
baked potatoes, sweet potatoes, those. We're Americans, and they like their meat and potato, or they like that heavy carb, and it sounds like they actually are okay.
Yeah, well, eat your meat and potato without the meat. Eat your potato with some broccoli or some beans or some kale. That's how you want to do it. They did studies. You can Google KON, the KON potato study, where they fed these subjects nothing but potatoes for an entire year. They were completely bored with the diet, but they had absolutely no change in weight and zero nutritional deficiencies. They had another guy named Chris Voigt, who was the head of the Washington Potato Commission. You can go on 20 potatoes a day. And he was upset when the government would no longer accept food stamps per potato. So he went on a 20 potato a day diet. Within 3 months, he lost something like 60 pounds, reversed his diabetes and heart disease. So potatoes are an amazing food. They're 400 calories a pound with fiber and water and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and micronutrients. But Americans don't eat them steamed or baked or boiled or even microwaved. What they do is they cut them up into little pieces and fry them in sugar, fat, and salt to make French fries or potato chips. And so they take a 400 calorie a pound whole natural food and they turn it into an unhealthy 2,500 calorie a pound food-like substance. So that's part of the reason it got its bad rep. Or even if they do eat a baked potato in America, they stuff it with very high fat, high calorie things like sour cream or butter or cheese and bacon. So that's really, really the problem with that. But potatoes are amazing. 2 billion Asians on the planet have lived on rice, and they're slim and they're healthy. I don't think white rice is as healthy as brown rice, but it's still an okay food. Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University pioneered something called the rice diet, which is still implemented today in the hospital. And what they do is for people that are overweight or have diabetes, they feed them nothing but white rice and fruit juice. And guess what? They all get slim and they all get well. So carbs have been vilified for a very long time. And it's not necessary, and it's certainly not enjoyable to not eat carbs. I mean, there is no enjoyment when you just eat animal products and no carbs. Meat and potatoes might be enjoyable, but meat, I don't think it is, unless you're a mountain lion. And even a mountain lion doesn't eat meat 3 times a day, and even a mountain lion doesn't eat every single day. But Americans are eating meat and cheese and sugar, 3 meals a day. 7 days a week. Americans eating a half a pound of sugar a day. Most Americans, 150 pounds per person per year. I don't eat any, so somebody out there is eating my share. That's for sure.
I think it's amazing. Only 400 calories for a pound of potato.
Absolutely. And they're so satisfying, too. They're amazing.
And if you think about it, that's less calories than one little square of ramen noodles.
Oh, I bet. And you 3 tablespoons of olive oil. You can have a whole pound of potatoes. And, you don't have to eat white potatoes if you don't like them or you're worried for whatever reason. Eat sweet potatoes. I love Japanese sweet potatoes, Okinawan or Hawaiian sweet potatoes. There's so many varieties of sweet potatoes. They're so healthy. They're probably like one of nature's most perfect food. You could almost live on them. And if I had to pick one food, that's probably what I would pick.
Sweet potatoes?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You can steam them or bake them or roast them. You can make French fries out of them without any oil, cut them into a fry shape and bake them. I mean, sweet potatoes are just so satisfying.
They're so good.
They're so good. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Except the weird people.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody not liking sweet potatoes. They haven't had good sweet potatoes then.
My mom cooked them, so I could understand.
Yeah.
So let's talk what people can do. For many people, letting go of their meat and processed foods can seem daunting at best. Is eating healthier or becoming a vegan something that you have to do cold turkey?
Yes and no. It depends. See, here's the thing. I don't know how many people are listening to this, but I can't talk to them all individually because when I work with a person, the first thing I say is, what are your goals? What are your goals? We all have different goals. Eating healthfully is not court ordered. It should be for some people, but the reality is you have free will and you have choice. You can do whatever you want. I don't think it's fair when people impose these unhealthy foods on their children who don't have a choice. But you get to eat what you want and you get to choose. So once I know a person's goal, I tell them what to do. And so generally before I even take stuff away, and also if somebody is really sick, they might be more highly motivated to make changes faster. And also different personalities do better different ways. I know that I'm a very extreme person. I'm an all or nothing person. And if I know what the end result is going to be, instead of leaning into it and dipping my toe in the water, I'd rather just jump in the pool. That's how I've been with everything in my life. But there's other people that maybe aren't facing the threat of a surgeon's knife or having to go on injectable insulin or taking medicine that maybe have more time. And so they can dabble in it. I find that as long as you're eating these addictive foods, you never acquire the taste for the whole natural food. So I find it's much harder to go slower. And that's why they have places like the McDougall program in Santa Rosa, a wonderful live-in 10-day program, or a place I work called True North, also in Santa Rosa. Even though it's a fasting center, you do not have to fast there. You never have to fast. You can just eat the food and get well. So I recommend, places like this because I think the education is just as important as the food. I think it's a knowledge-based program as much as it is a food-based program. But the first thing that I recommend to everyone that wants to make changes, and that's the operative word because not everybody does, is to start eating more fruits and vegetables. So instead of taking away their beloved blank, whatever that is, their cheese, their meat, their processed food, I say, okay, you can't give it up right now, but how about eating some fruits and vegetables? How about eating a salad with or before dinner? How about having a piece of fruit? Because as I said, Americans eat 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, less than 10% from fruits and vegetables. So let's find ways to get more fruits and vegetables into their diet. Most people like pasta. They like, they'll have a marinara sauce, whether it's got some meat in it or not. How about blending some vegetables and hiding some pureed vegetables like carrots or other things, or adding some mushrooms? But look for ways that you can add more fruits and vegetables in your diet every day, preferably in their whole food form rather than juicing them. Maybe, I'm not a real big fan of smoothies, especially for people trying to lose weight or juicing. But hey, anything that's going to get vegetables in people so that they can develop a taste for them is a good thing. So that's what I say first is get rid of, add more fruits and vegetables. The second thing I would say is if you're ready, sometimes the thing that's going to be the hardest should be the thing that's done first. So, it seems to be cheese for people. So, what I say is just do an experiment for 21 days. Try this program. I've got this ultimate weight loss program that's coming out on DVD. And I'm like, try it for 21 days. You don't like it day 22, go to In-N-Out Burger. It's okay. But try it. But again, people have to know what their goals are, because just being pressured by somebody else or even the doctor, that's not always, highly motivating enough for people. And even people, people when they're serious food addicts, it doesn't even matter what they're facing. Some people would rather die than change. And, that's their right. That's why you see commercials on television for people with lung cancer on oxygen, smoking through the little hole in their neck. It's always your choice. It's always, I want people to know that this is their choice. And, when they make better choices, their life can change. They can feel better. They can look better. You try to motivate them by, if there's people with grandchildren, it's like they can, people seem to like their grandchildren a lot more than their children. So it's like, hey, you can sit on the floor, you can play with them, you can be here longer, you can go to their weddings. There's different ways to motivate people, but first we have to know what their goals are. In California, where it's very warm and I think that women are judged on their looks wherever they are, but I think it's probably more so here because we don't wear winter coats, so we can't hide our figures. A lot of times people come to me for vanity reasons, not necessarily for health, and that's perfect. It doesn't matter why you want to change your diet. I don't really care. I mean, it's not that I don't care, but I'm just saying you got to know why you want to change your diet, what your goals are, short term and long term, and sometimes people just aren't ready. That's the other thing, and forcing them or yelling at them or making them feel bad, that's not going to make them change their diet. So what I say to people is lead by example. eat the change you want to see in the world. And then when people see you, like with me, having lost all this weight, it's like people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let me show you. So you got to find out, meet people where they are and find out what their goals are. And, for women, a lot of times it is just to look a lot better. Even if they're married, they just want to, we have pressure to be thin, and we've been brought up that thin is better. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying this is the perception. And, the thing is what I do to get people thin is the same thing I do that Dr. Esselstyn does to get them reverse heart disease. Same diet, actually the exact same diet. So, we work with people depending on their goals, but eating more fruits and vegetables is tantamount and paramount to getting better, feeling better, and looking better. So I just say start there. Start with a salad. Have a green smoothie. Eat a piece of fruit. Eat a banana. Eat some oatmeal. Just eat more plants. That's what I say.
When my kids were young, my stepkids, they had a horrendous diet, and I started instituting different things because they didn't like my food because it didn't taste like potato chips and hot dogs,
of course,
and ramen noodles.
Yep.
And so we would do things like we would have Fruit Frenzy Friday, and would have this giant bowl of fruit, or I would make oodles of poodle noodles, which was lasagna noodles because I'm allergic to milk and they never knew this, with tofu wrapped up in it with a little bit of sauce on it. Mm-hmm. And now they both actually eat very healthy and thank me for getting them to realize that eating junk was bad.
Yeah, it really is. And it's addictive. That's the thing. And that's the other thing is you find things that they already like and try to make it healthier. So you use the oodles of noodles is a perfect example, because most people like pasta type dishes, and it will taste just as good to them if you make an oil-free marinara as if you make one with tons of oil. So you find ways to make things they like healthier. Most kids like bananas. And so one of the ways to make bananas even more delicious is you take a banana, you let it ripen, you freeze it, and for $49, you go out and buy what's called a Yonanas machine, and you run it through the machine, and they got ice cream. And I've never met anybody that didn't like this. So find things they like, find ways to make what they like healthier, not necessarily restricting the other things. The other thing I would say, and there is no reason for soda to exist. I'm going to be real honest. I think Mayor Bloomberg is right. Nobody needs to be drinking soda. We don't really need to be drinking anything other than water. I'm not a fan of alcohol or juice or milk or soda, but soda, I mean, come on, it's just calories. It's just sugar. It's just caffeine. For other countries that are poor, they use soda to clean their toilets. And if you're having soda, whether it's diet or regular, you're basically ingesting toilet cleaner. You can put it on a car engine to get the rust off. So do something in the direction of optimum health. I always tell people that just because they do everything doesn't mean they shouldn't do anything. If you've never exercised, you're not going to run the LA Marathon next week, but you could park a few spaces farther, with the grocery, make some changes, because even small changes when done consistently over time can lead to results. But to just do something, a lot of people make New Year's resolutions, but live your life in a healthful manner so that you don't even have to make resolutions. Just make healthful changes a step at a time,
Perfect. Chef AJ, we need to wrap up, but I know that you're going to be back in lovely Marshall, Texas here in March.
That's right.
What are you going to be doing?
Well, I'm excited because, the mayor of Marshall, Texas, Ed Smith III, he is a plant-based advocate, and his wonderful wife, Amanda Smith, put on this event every year called the New Year Health Fest. I'm the master of ceremonies. I'll be speaking on Friday night. Let me get you the exact date. It's the 27th of March. I'll be doing a culinary demo on Saturday the 28th and giving a lecture on the 29th. You can go to gethealthymarshall.com and get tickets. About 400 people come from states all over the United States. So I hope to see some of your listeners there. I'll actually be in Houston next month. Dr. Baxter Montgomery, the plant-based cardiologist, is having his symposium on Saturday, February 22nd. So that should be fun. So I get to go to Texas a lot. It's a fun state. It really is. We see the cows, going to slaughter as we're all us vegans are coming in to speak. So it's kind of fun. It's interesting. People are great. I really love Marshall, and I've been there, I think, 5 or 6 times, and they have a real strong community. That's the other thing. Whatever change you make, whatever change you're trying to make, a community is really important, whether it's to get fitter or to get healthier. It's always good to have a buddy.
Well, I'm a new transplant to Marshall, and I just was flabbergasted to find out that there was such a big vegan community here.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like they say, vegetarians are sprouting up all over, even in the oddest places. I've been to small towns in Alaska where there's just community, and you do need community, whatever your goals are. It's always great to have support, and the Smiths have really provided just wonderful support for the people of Marshall. I went with Amanda on one of the store tours she does at Kroger. She does an excellent job educating the people, and they've talked to the restaurants, and they have a V plate, a vegetarian plate or a vegan plate on almost every menu at every town, not every town, every restaurant in Marshall. So, and they've gotten Kroger to carry kale and all kinds of things. So it's terrific,
I think it's great.
Yep.
Well, Chef, we need to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you know.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing you in Marshall.
Yeah, because I will be there. I'm volunteering.
Nice.
In March, so hopefully I'll see you.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the work you're doing.
All right, thank you. That's Chef AJ. Her book is Unprocessed. Her website is eatunprocessed.com. And then next week, we're going to be speaking with Meg Blackburn-Lucy about the children of now, evolution. Until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita. Until next time, remember, it's all just energy.